Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard. And we have a good show for you this week. We're going to talk about some of the injury news that Bob Murray updated everybody with in the last couple days. If you didn't catch our last show, we had talked about the hockey hot stove when Murray made a bunch of announcements and answered a bunch of fan questions. So if you didn't hear that show, go back and check it out. There's a lot of info in there. We're not going to go over all of it again, but we are going to cover some of it in this show, especially with a lot of the fan questions. Since then, the Ducks have gone 4-4, kind of what Eddie and I had talked about in the last couple shows, that they were going to go 500, so no surprises there. What's, I guess, your initial thoughts, Eddie, with the Ducks these last couple weeks is, some of the rookies are playing, a lot of the guys, Kesler, Eaves, are out. I guess just kind of your thoughts on the Ducks, in the last couple weeks.
I just like how more relaxed they're playing. Not really relaxed, like, the season's over relaxed, but just the way they're playing relaxed. It's not like that much friction or that much pressure. There's not that elephant in the room around the ice, per se. I like their play. It's unfortunate that they lost against the Kings twice already, and that's just, like I told you last show, I don't care if we lose every game to at least beat the Kings. We did beat the Sharks, though, so that was pretty fun. We still have one more game against the Kings, so hopefully we can take that one. I love what I've seen with the rookies. I love their intensity. I love their no-quit mentality. It's hard with the Ducks, too. Like, they have that mentality of not just shutting down and not playing. I remember a few seasons ago, because I followed the Colorado Avalanche a lot, too. During their bad season, I guess all the players were just in the locker room talking about how they're going to have fun in Vegas and all the summer plans before the season was even over. And then former Ducks goaltender that was an Avalanche then, G.S. Jaguar, he kind of put him in check. He's pretty much telling him, hey, what the hell is wrong with you guys? We're still professional athletes, and he said, we're playing for pride and for the city and for the fans and for the league. And he had to put them in check, and he went public with that too, like how the guys just kind of just gave up. And I don't see that with the Ducks this season. Yeah, I mean, I think if Minnesota gets a point today or wins, the Ducks are officially out of the playoff run. But I think we're already out of the playoff run already. But this just makes it official if Minnesota wins or gets a point. But I just like their no quit mentality. Besides, like in the second period, and they don't seem to come out play. That's the only thing that kind of bothers me as of right now with the Ducks.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like we said before, they went 500, but you're right. They lost those couple of games to the Kings, and that was kind of irritating. And yeah, some of the second period play in some of these games has been kind of annoying. Not, what we like to see. So I do like seeing the rookies out there, though. They've been playing better. As we talked about, Jones has gotten his first goal finally. You see Terry's out there doing pretty well. He got that third star of the week recently as well. So, it's a good time for the Ducks to focus on the young players. Let them get some time in there and play. Obviously, some of the senior guys haven't been in there. And we'll kind of jump through the show. It's going to be a different one this week. We've had a lot of fan questions, so we're going to kind of go through those. We'll also talk about the updates that Murray gave and kind of bounce around with some stuff. So just a couple days ago, Murray talked about some of the injury updates. Some of them are minor and some of them are more major. I guess one of the big ones is Patrick Eaves. He said that he was dealing with similar muscle weakness issues, the ones that he had from before last season. And Eaves has only played in 7 games with the Ducks this year. He's also only played in 7 games in San Diego, and he hasn't played since then. And he's not going to play the rest of the season, so he's out. And it's a big loss. Obviously the season's done, as you mentioned. The Ducks are pretty much eliminated. Even if they win all the rest of their games, it's not going to happen. But it brings us to the one question that Brian Lindsay asks, if anybody's going to be bought out during this offseason, and if so, who? And I think this first part with Eaves is pretty interesting, Eddie, because a source close to the team told me too recently that there's a good chance that Eaves is done completely. So I think if this is one of the guys that you're going to look at the Ducks might buy out, I think there's a high probability that he could be one, or maybe he's one that retires. There's no word on which one he would do, but based upon what I'm hearing, it's unfortunate. But with this situation arising again, it doesn't look good for him returning at all, which is unfortunate. But he also only has one more season left next year. So, he's at $2 million, just over that for next season. There's a good chance that he could retire, or maybe the Ducks buy him out and, they can go forward after that. But that's kind of what we're looking at, Eddie. I don't know what else you think or you heard about Eaves, but I think it's time for him to hang him up, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. You said unfortunately, and I feel the same way because I personally like Eaves. I talked to him a few times. I got to interview him. And he's a great guy, and he was a great player. When he first got traded to the Ducks, he had a big impact. He got kind of like railroaded with all these injuries and stuff. And like you said, you mentioned in your article that Duck was removed. He's dealing with that muscle weakness issue since the beginning of the season, and he's missed some goals games too as well. I think it's time for him to hang up. And there's no point to try to force yourself back into the league when you have one more year on your contract. I mean, after that, who's going to really sign someone that has those injury issues? I think the most important thing is to get healthier for yourself and kind of figure out what you want to do with life after hockey, like for you and your family, and you have the best life as possible, and not have to worry about trying to get back in that physical shape to compete and possibly get hurt or do anything more serious. I mean, it's going to be unfortunate whether he chooses to retire or we do buy him out. But I don't really see him being back in the Ducks lineup next season. It's just really unfortunate. I like him a lot, but I mean, he has to do what's best for himself, and the Ducks have to do what's best for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, the other player obviously that would relate to that question would be Ryan Kesler, which Murray also gave an update on that. He said that he was meeting with Kesler and the doctors to figure out what was going to happen. We know he hasn't played in the last couple of weeks. He's not going to play the rest of the season. He's being shut down. The biggest thing, with Kesler, and we did talk about it too on the last show, we can still go into it on this one as well, is he going to play next season or not, or is he going to consider retirement? Will the Ducks buy him out? There's all these different factors going on. We know that he pushed himself extremely hard. If you remember in the some of the articles that were written, that he had his home gym built and he did all these things. He got to the 1,000 games, but he still talked about trying to get back to the Stanley Cup final, and that's something that he really wants to do. So that would be the other player too, to answer the question there that Brian's asking. If they're talking about buying out anybody, those are the two players. I think obviously Eaves is the more likely of the two. Kesler, I think there's just a lot going on. I don't think a decision's going to be made with him right away. Probably down the road. He may even take the summer to work out with that home gym, that he built and all the other things that he's going to do, and maybe see how he is come August, September. I don't think there's going to be a decision made right away. There hasn't been any update about that meeting. At least it hasn't been posted yet or anything. I haven't heard anything about that on that front. So I don't know. What do you think about Kesler? To me, I think there's a lot more things that can happen with him, Eddie, as we talked about in the last show: retirement, buyout, or he could take the summer and try and come back next year.
Yeah, it's really hard with Kesler. Kesler's been one of those players. He hasn't really been performing to his Kesler ability. He hasn't been that shutdown forward, or he hasn't really been an impact. He played in 82 games. 2016-17, he had 58 points from then. He played in 2017-18. He played 44 games and only had 14 points. Now he's at 60 games with only 8 points. It just keeps going down and down from there. And we're not seeing that same Kesler anymore. Like, we're not seeing him really, be that pest or really crash the net or put that physicality in there. He's just not the same player. And I don't blame him. Like I said, quality of life is more important than the game. So, he has a family to think about, and he has to go from there. So, yeah, of course, he doesn't want something to be permanently damaged. So maybe he's playing with a little more caution, but, it's not helping the Ducks at all one bit. And that's going to be really interesting to see what we do with him, because he hasn't really performed, and he had the summer off. And he looked like, when he first came back, he looked decent. but then he just went downhill. I mean, he barely scored, I think he went, 18, 19 games, something like that, without a goal. I probably could be a little bit more. But with that cap space, we can go out and try to find someone to replace him, or we can, give extra responsibility to Henrique that we signed already too. But I mean, that's going to be really interesting to see how they go about the Kesler situation. Maybe they're going to buy him out, which is kind of a little more unlikely, or if he chooses to retire and go from there. It's going to be interesting, especially with this team retooling. So we're not really sure what's going to happen next season, if we're going to, be a different team and be a competitive Stanley Cup final team, or we're just going to be one of those teams that are continuing to retool and go for that season. So I think when handing the Nebraska down and really talked about next season's plan, that's probably going to play a factor if he chooses to come back or if he chooses to call it quits. But I mean, this one's up in the air. It can go either way. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and part of this equation, obviously, too, is the contract and the money involved. It's a lot more here, obviously, with Kesler than it is with Eaves. Kessler's got 3 more years left on his contract at, $6.8 million. So there's some things to factor in there. We talked about it. They did a buyout. They'd still be on the hook for, a few million, each of the next 3 seasons. If he retires, of course, that's the best scenario for the Ducks because he just walks away. But I don't know. I don't really see him necessarily doing that. I mean, that's one of the fan questions that Yuri asked, is he officially done? I mean, we don't know 100%, but I don't think so. I think he is going to take the summer and do what he has to do and then, make a decision later on. I really think that's the case. I think another interesting thing, too, that Alex brought up, he talked about this article in the New York Times about hip injuries and how they bring quote, more athletes to their knees, and basically how, you're not really the same ever since then. He also talked about, Isaiah Thomas, if you're talking about basketball as well. I mean, it affects all sports too, not just hockey. But I think that's a huge factor. I didn't have a chance to go through and read the article completely, but when you're talking about that, it's true. If you have that hip injury, and we know he had fragments in his hip, he had to have things, basically done in that area. I mean, you're not going to be exactly the same. It's just the way it is. You're not, and you can see it on the ice. We've talked about it before. You mentioned it earlier in the show as far as him, the way he's checking and whatnot, and I've seen it too as far as the way that he does his transitions and stuff. He's not terrible. He still can play and skate, but it's just not quite where it was before. So I think that's another part that you have to look at too. With both these guys, Eddie, I mean, you're talking about Eaves, who's had all these kind of muscle type problems where, basically his stamina is gone out the wayside, which has put him in a bad bind. With Kesler, I think there is the ability still to play, but the question is what kind of level can he play, and will the Ducks be willing to pay him $6.8 million for each of the next 3 seasons? With most likely playing a bottom 6 role, because that's kind of what he did, up until he got shut down this season, Eddie.
Yeah, that's what kind of kills me, that cap space. That cap space. It's a big amount of money for a bottom 6 player that I just don't see him, being that player he once was, especially with everything that went on with him. It's unfortunate because I used to love his style of play. I bought 2 Kesler jerseys. I mean, he was a great player, a great American player. He played the game real hard, and it's just awesome. He was just great to see, but now it's different. And even given, the bottom 6 role, he's still really not producing. I've talked about before putting Perry on a 4th line or 3rd line, and for some reason, Perry starts producing a lot more. I think it gives him some extra motivation. Kesler doesn't seem like he's just crashing around out there, just going through the motions. He seems like he's tried it. He's just not willing to be that old Kesler. And it's no fault to him. I mean, once you get injured like that bad, I mean, you don't want to permanently damage something, but, I mean, it's kind of affecting, everyone around him, too, because hockey's a team sport. They don't really rely on one person, despite what, the Oilers fans think about, McDavid thinking he's their savior and they're going to win 1,000 Stanley Cups with him. But, I mean, we have to, stop it and think of the reality of the situation. It's just, like you used the word before to describe Eaves. This is one of those things that are unfortunate too, because we thought we lost with Kesler. Yeah, it was a little bit high of a price, but we didn't expect to see this kind of downfall so early. I thought it was going to be like the last year of the contract. then he was going to start, falling off his numbers. But I mean, his injuries really took a sack, and I mean, it's really kind of hurting the team too with the Caps. I mean, we can't go out and get one of those big name players. We have to just kind of like maintain what we have in the Caps to see, what we can get from there, and kind of like rely on guys, that are bottom six guys from different teams and put them in a top six role and see how they perform.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, you also brought up Corey Perry, and that's another one that I heard from a team source that the Ducks have looked at him and potentially, trying to move him. Obviously, he has the no movement clause. You talk about, the salary cap and issues there. Perry's getting, $8.6 million in each of the next two seasons. Granted, he's been out, most of this season, as you all know. He's, just played over 25, 26 games. He's got 5 goals, 4 assists. Not terrible numbers. I mean, if it was a full season, it'd be close to 20 goals. I mean, it's still not the level that we've been accustomed to, seeing him, maybe get 30, 40 goals. It's not up there. But granted, this season's kind of an enigma. We'll have a show when the Ducks finish the season talking about the good and the bad and the ugly. Probably a lot of bad and the ugly, unfortunately, for this season. But we'll go over that as well. And I think, Perry's another interesting one because I've seen, both sides of this one, Eddie. It seems like a lot of people, are tired of the contract, don't think that he's worth it anymore. Of course, now he's had the busted knee. Can he do his thing? This one's a little bit tougher to swallow, I think, because now you're talking about even more cap space, 2 years. He's been out this season. He still has done some good goals and things like that and still can play. So to me, I don't think he goes anywhere. I think the Ducks keep him. I just don't see him leaving or wanting to leave. Obviously, you have to waive that no movement clause. But what's your feeling on Perry? Do you think that he's still underperforming? Do you think he's someone the Ducks should try to talk to him about maybe trading, or do you think they just kind of leave him alone, let him do his thing also over the summer and come back next season?
I think he'll stay, and I kind of want him to stay, and this is kind of weird coming from my mouth because if you guys listen to past shows, I've never been a Perry fan. I never liked his – I liked his aggressiveness. I just liked some of the antics that he chose to do. So I was never a big fan of Perry, but, I mean, just as a recent, this season, he comes back, and, yeah, he's not the same Corey Perry that scored 50 goals. He'll probably never get to that level. I mean, I definitely hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong on a lot of things I say on the show, and it's surprising me, but I like his play. He's still just, despite that, he's driving towards the net. He's, being that pest, and he's making players, think twice. He's making players keep their head up and having to, make, those like decisions when he's on the ice. Like, okay, when Perry's on the ice, and I'm another player, now I gotta keep my head up. I gotta watch out for him because he's not gonna hold back. He's gonna go hit you. And even if you're not doing anything, he's gonna hit you. The game against Winnipeg, he was just being a pest and, willing to go out there, and I like that. I think the Ducks have significantly lost that this season. We're not called, the dirty Ducks anymore. I think we're called the overly polite Ducks. If you guys have been watching the whole season, you can see players skate full speed, and they can make a clean, legal check, and they give up and just kind of like stop and let up. So you're telling the other team, hey, you're going to give me that fraction of a second to, look the other way and kind of create a different play. And then, boom, guess what? Gibson's left the drive. We have a 2-on-1. This season, despite him only having 9 points and being out most of the time, I started being a fan of Perry. I like his play. I think he's despite him playing only 26 games, he's been one of the most physical Ducks out there and willing to put his body and sacrifice for his team. And I think that makes him a really great teammate. Now, he's a great teammate and he's great for the Ducks. The cap hit? No. I mean, yeah, we're paying him way too much to do that. I think we might see a different Perry. He's still going to be that physical, that pest, but I think his numbers will go up next season. It's a fresh new start. He came in halfway through the season. It's hard to come into a team when you're ready, like just off, pretty much off the cliff. So I mean, I don't think he goes anywhere. I think he's going to stay. I mean, he technically can't go anywhere unless he wants to. And I doubt, with him having a family and everything, he just wants to move out of SoCal and go somewhere else. I mean, I could be wrong. Gretzky got traded. I mean, you got example of Gretzky can get traded, anyone can. But I really don't think he's going to go anywhere. And I'm really hoping, and I can predict that he might have a better season. Maybe surpass that 49 points he had, in 2017 and 18. And definitely increase on those hits in the penalty match.
Well, the funny thing, too, you talk about trades. Don't forget, Teemu Selanne was traded. So, I mean, there's still a chance that anybody can be traded. We heard Murray say that, nobody is, safe and whatnot. So there's still that possibility. You just, you never know. There could be a situation where one of these guys does get moved, as we talked about. And I think this kind of leads to some of the other questions that we have. We have a couple of them. Basically, we can kind of talk about them now. I mean, the season's not quite over, but they're talking about, Doug asked, the end of the year is very close. What do the Ducks need to do to be competitive next season? We also have kind of tied into that. Mario asks about the rebuild, or if you want to call it retooling, whichever way you want to talk about it. Murray obviously says it's not a rebuild, it's a retooling. And he asks about, are the rookies good enough? So I kind of look, if you want, you can pull up Cap Friendly. You can look at the UFAs that the Ducks have, and I think that's where you kind of start. Obviously, the draft will be coming up. We'll have a show talking about that as well. The Ducks picks aren't necessarily set. You remember they traded for some, and some of them depend on who finishes where in the season. So we'll go into that on another show. But if you're looking at the Ducks roster and maybe who they should bring back, outside of the rookies, and we'll get to the rookies in a minute. But if you're looking at how to kind of fix the team, or maybe keep the team going better next season, I think one of the ones that you want to bring back is Derek Grant. He's a UFA next season. I think all of us can, we all crack our jokes about the elite center, but I mean, he's been a good, player for the Ducks the both times he's been with Anaheim. So there's one guy that I would like to see Anaheim bring back. You've had a couple other UFAs, and then you have Holzer, which is kind of if they bring him back, great. If not a big deal. Chad Johnson, not really a big deal there. Schuster, another one that's not a big deal. The only other one that's pretty huge, and there was an article in The Athletic about him recently, is Ryan Miller. And to me, this is a huge one. I really, really adamantly think that the Ducks need to bring him back. Specifically, look at some of these UFAs. To me, they talked about in that article, if you didn't get a chance to read it by Eric Stevens, they talked about, obviously his wife works here in SoCal. He's got his family and whatnot. He still can play the game. He's got the most wins of any American born goaltender in the NHL. And, the big thing, one of the mistakes of this season, is we talked about, Eddie, was Gibson getting worn down and basically ran over. Part of it due to the poor defense that the Ducks played early in the season. Also, a lot of it due to Randy Carlyle just putting him out there every game, no matter what. And we said that, hey, he needs to get a break and put Miller in there. Obviously, Miller was hurt this season too, so that affected some of it. But to me, I think Miller's a guy that you absolutely have to bring back. That'll also help next season. He's a leader in the locker room. He's a veteran player. He helps out other players with their game. Everybody likes him. He's, just a good person in general. So, I mean, if we're looking to answer part of that first question, we're talking about what we can do. I think if we're looking at the players we want to retain, the biggest two that I see in my mind are Derek Grant and Ryan Miller. Eddie, I don't know if you think there's any other players that they should make sure to bring back next season, and then we can kind of talk about the rookies.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with Grant, but knowing our GM, our vice president, and our coach, he's probably going to let Grant walk and then trade for him again through the trade deadline. So we probably won't have Grant to start the season, but guaranteed by March we'll have Grant, in the Ducks uniform again. But I agree. I like Grant. He can fill various roles, and he was put up as as one of our top centers a couple seasons ago. He performed well. He's not that top center player, but he stood in the role well. And he knows his role with the team. And another person, I know maybe not too popular with a lot of stats, but Holzer. I think Holzer's been playing some great hockey the last few games. And Holzer's the kind of person that he knows his role with the team. He knows, he's not going to sit there and bitch about, being scratched or bitch about being sent down. And he's just one of those players that he's going to, wherever he goes, he's going to be, the best possible person there, I think. Just the way he plays. He can be down in San Diego, and he'll play his 100% best over there. mentor our younger guys. He comes up to the Ducks, he's going to play 100% there. He plays in the press box, and I'm pretty sure he talks to his teammates, and he's probably giving them 100% support while he's not playing. So I think bringing him back, I would like to see him back. Is he going to make the Ducks more competitive? Is, that much stronger? Maybe not, but it gives us, when we have all these injuries, which, knock on wood. I just knocked right now. It just gives us that extra veteran, that veteran that's not going to sit there and cry or complain about not having enough ice time or being, cut down up and back and forth. He's just one of those players that knows his role and he's willing to accept it just to play. Now, Ryan Miller, definitely Chad Johnson might come back. I doubt he's going to come back. I'll scratch with that. Ryan Miller, I would like to see him back. He's a great. He still has some, some shades left in him. We've seen it this season. Unfortunately, he got injured, and like you said, he doesn't really want to go anywhere besides Southern California because of his family. So either he's going to re-sign with the Ducks, which I think is probably, maybe a priority for him. He's been signing with this, or he's going to go to the Kings. I think the Kings will pay him too. They want that veteran leadership role. He's played in big games before, and even with Click, they have Johnson Click over there. I can't see him going anywhere, but he can actually be a mentor for Click too. They were teammates, and he can just, help Click out. Like he's an old school goalie, or American goalie. He has the all-time wins for American goalies, so that plays for something. So I don't want to see him in a Kings jersey at all. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably just break a couple of glasses and bitch and complain and clean it up later and complain about me breaking glasses. But I think re-signing Miller for another season, it can't hurt. You could just, hopefully Gibson is learning things from Miller and kind of looking to him as a mentor, even though he's the backup goalie. But this goalie, Miller, has been in big situations. He almost got USA that gold medal until Crosby had a squirt over a tough angle. Still remember that game. That was, I think, the first time at the bar, everyone was like watching that hockey game. It was like, no, the whole bar, like multiple people just for hockey. It's awesome. So that was cool to see. But I think bringing back Miller, Grant definitely, and then for me, it's just to add, it's Holzer.
Yeah, I don't think you get much of an argument for me too. Holzer's more of a role player. So, but you're right. He doesn't, bitch and complain. He just does whatever they need him to do. And he's not perfect, but obviously he's still a guy that, can go out there, at least give you, some solid minutes. So he may be another one that they bring back too. Obviously the big thing that, to make this team more competitive next season, really it's all going to have to start with the coach. And we know that Murray's going to go on a big search to try and pick up somebody. He mentioned that, and we talked about it in the last podcast. He's going to hit basically the ground running, so to speak, as soon as the last whistle of the last game. So that's another situation that's going to really dictate this team next year. Of course, we talked about Dallas Eakins, talked about that with Jordan Samuel Thomas, and that was one of the big front runners, at least internally, we talked about. But Murray also talked about looking around the league. So I am glad that he's doing that. You want to try and, take, a full survey of what you got out there and see who you think's the best pick. So that's part of it. That's part of it that they're going to have to figure out too. It's going to start, I think with the coach first, obviously bringing some of these key guys back, as you mentioned. Some of the other stuff too is, it's just the way that the guys are playing. Don't forget, Cassé's been out. He was doing very well this season. And if you look at some of these last games, look at Silverberg and Raquel. They picked it up. Silverberg's now got 23 goals. Raquel picked up. He's got 3 goals in the last couple games. So that's part of it too. If the Ducks can get all these guys back in the groove and scoring, and then I think we can tie into that too, Eddie, is the rookies. Jones, Terry, and Steele, and them, being up next season as well. I don't see the Ducks having to make too many moves. Obviously there's going to be the draft. They got to figure out some of those picks. They may make some trades with those picks. That's usually more the time that Murray does stuff, and he may make some kind of big move during the summer. But outside of that, to me, it really starts with the coach, bringing back the key guys, and then basically having these young guys keep on carrying the way that they've been playing the rest of the season. Silverberg doing his thing, Raquel picking up, things like that. And to me, that's really the big key right now. And then you carry that into the next season, Eddie.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. Raquel's getting hot now. He's really heating up. He's been scoring like crazy. I wish some of those goals would have came, throughout the season, but he's finding his groove back, and I hope next season that continues. And Silverberg too. I hate about USA's when they get extensions. Like for some reason, most of them that second year or that first year of their extension, they just kind of like I don't know. They don't really play that well. But I hope it's a good Silverberg. I hope he continues with heating it up. Just being hot and scoring. He has a really good shot. So does Raquel. Like Raquel's wrist shot. I've never noticed how great and accurate and just smooth his wrist shot was until the last few games. Like, holy hell, he has a really good wrist shot. Usually, a little snapshot, he gets it in, but it's like one of the first times I really feel like his wrist shot. So they're going to play a big factor. I was going to mention too. I wanted to mention it was in my mind earlier. I wanted to throw it out there before I forgot to mention it. But Max Jones, that kid has some freaking moves. And once he just gets a few more games, he gets that more experience and confidence, and he starts finishing, he's going to be dangerous. He's big. It's like as big as he is, he has some of those the moves he makes around players. It's like, what the hell is he doing? And I have to stop and play it back slower just to actually see it. Like, oh wow, how did he do that? It just seems like he did it on accident, but it's doing it every game pretty much. He's getting past defense by a quick little move. So I think he's gonna be a factor too next season.
Yeah, what I like too is in this last game that we saw during the stretch since our last show, the one against Nashville when he freaking went at it with Subban. I thought that was hilarious. And then Subban's talking trash after it's over and the ref's next to him. And then Jones is like, oh, you want to talk now, And oh my God, it's hilarious. And like you said, I think he needs a little bit more time to get some of those moves, a little bit tweaked and a little bit better. Obviously he's got it there. He's just, some of these games he's been real close to finishing a play, or it's been broken up, or he just loses the handle or something. But you can see that. He's going to be. He's already good, but he's going to be even better. And I think you're right. He needs a little bit more. But I like the fact too that he's not one of these guys that is just a finesse player. And that was something I think also to answer that question, talking about next season, what the Ducks need to do. That Doug asked us about is not just getting other players back healthy, re-signing some of these players, getting the coach. All those are factors. Those are all important, of course. And then, like we said, the draft, and if we make any kind of trades there. But part of it, too, is some of the younger guys are more finesse players. Like Terry's more a finesse player. You're not seeing him out there checking people. And I'm not saying that that's bad, but we don't want to have a whole bunch of young guys come up and they're all just finesse players. You still got to have some grit in there, some toughness in there. And I think that's one thing. If it's a broken record, you and I have been breaking it all season because we've been harping on that, I think, since we did the podcast in the beginning of the season about the physical play of the Ducks. So I like that about Jones. I like that he brings that. And I think that that's something that the rest of the team, obviously some players you're not going to be able just to change them overnight. You're not going to tell Terry, hey, you're going to go out there and start, crushing people. That's not his style of game. But what I'm saying is that the Ducks as a whole, they need to pick up that physical play, whether it's just giving a good body check or a good shoulder check or whatnot, and not letting that guy skate past you, or not just standing there and doing some stuff, which we've seen with some issues with certain players throughout, offense and defense throughout the season. So I think part of it is a character thing too, Eddie, is, they got to score more. Of course, we talked about that, harped on that. But they've also got to play, a better team defense and more grit, basically, in their game.
Oh, yeah, and I'll keep breaking those records or break those CDs, or we have a whole new generation now. I'll break the damn iPod to say that. When I played in Colorado, I played a little beer league, but it was kind of rough out there, and you're allowed to hit a little. And there was a couple teams out there that had guys that just loved to play a physical game. And when I went and played against them, I knew to keep my head definitely up and not get complacent and get tired and keep my head down when I'm really tired. But I knew to watch out for certain guys out there, because if you don't keep your head up, you're going to get rocked. And made me think twice about making some certain moves. And I usually try to get rid of the puck prematurely. And because you have to stop and realize you're about to get hit. And no matter how tough you are, I mean, you could be the baddest guy, baddest ass on the earth, but I mean, there's always someone badder than you. Like, no matter what you do. I mean, I think I'm pretty tough, and I've been in. I can't even count how many fights I've been in hockey and bar fights. But we're not talking about those. But I mean, just the other day it reminds me. I was at work and doing some inventory stuff. I walked out, just strolling around, going to my car. I see a tiny little baby snake, and it flipped me out. And I jumped and started running. Like, little snake flipped me out. And I just relate that to hockey because, I mean, if the Ducks start getting back to that physicality and that big, hard-hitting game, I mean, these big players are going to think twice. I mean, no one wants to get hit. No one wants to be caught with their head down and, you know, get laid out. It's embarrassing, number one, and it freaking hurts. Like, and just that pain, it kind of sucks. Wake up with bruising and stuff like that. I mean, look at Subban. Like, he loves diving and stuff. Like, he loves doing that, but when it came down to fighting a rookie, he just skated away. I think Subban, he was doing the polite thing now, and maybe his breath was smelling from the playoffs a few seasons ago, and he didn't want Max Jones to smell his breath. But, yeah, I think, you know, that's the number one thing. We're playing in a hard-hitting physical sport. I mean, what do you want to do? Just, if you play a team knowing they're not going to hit you, then you're going to just, okay, I can do whatever I want. I can be in front of your goalie. I can take the jabs to your goalie. Oh, I'll get a little push here and there, but no one's really going to go after me. I loved about Perry in the Jets game, you know, the players were in Gibson's crease. I think it was, I don't even know who started this. I've watched so much hockey. But, yeah. They were in the crease, and Perry right away just starts hitting them. Get the hell out of the crease. You don't belong in the crease. He says, our goalie's crease. And he made them pay. And I like seeing that. And I just don't understand how the Ducks just, you know, just one season just drastically changed, especially under Carlisle, an old school mentality coach. Like, yeah, I guess he changed his, you know, his style of coaching to make the team less physical, but then, you know, he kept the dump and chase, which I don't understand. But I mean, I just don't like, and watching numerous games, how it seems like, you know, the hitting's getting dialed down a little bit, and it seems like people, you know, are okay with that, which I'm not. And I told you before, I love this game. I think I love this game more than, you know, than pretty much anyone I know. I've been told that I should have been a Canadian. That's how much I love the sport of hockey. But I think it's sad to see where this game is going, especially with the Ducks. Like, I don't think there's been more than 20 fights this season from the Ducks, and that's unusual because I remember going to games and there's at least, you know, one or two fights here and there, and it would be a fight every other game. And not necessarily fighting just to fight; they're fighting to spark the team, or just to energize the team, or send a message to, you know, the other team, like, hey, this is how we're going to play. And, you know, if you want to try to match up to us, you know, be ready to drop the gloves, be ready to hit. And it's not happening. And this season it didn't happen at all. I really hope next season, you know, the Ducks just get back to that physicality, those physical ways, and not just rely on Perry or, you know, Max Jones or Sherwood too played physical, and Richie. I mean, we need everyone to step up. And yeah, I'm not saying, you know, Terry go and drop the gloves. No, by all means, no. But if you have a legal hit, you know, a nice clean hit, go for it. Let the other team know you're there. So when they come to the Honda Center, they're like, I play the Ducks. Like, okay, this is a team where they're going to finish their checks. So we have to, you know, we have to play smart. We have to get rid of that puck quick and make them make mistakes and capitalize on that.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of things there. I think it's interesting around the league, like you said, that, you know, as far as the physicality, teams, there are teams that are still physical, but as far as the fighting element goes, you haven't seen it as much. There's not as many of the goons and whatnot in the league. But you're right, the Ducks haven't been as physical. And I think, like Murray had talked about too at that Hot Stove event, if the Ducks do try to go get someone, he talked about getting a big defenseman. Or actually talked about getting two big defensemen. He talked about getting one like Scotty Niedermayer, which that's not going to be so easy. But he also talked about getting another big physical presence like a Manson type. And I think that's another thing that they need to do. They need to get another physical presence back there on the blue line as well. Because, I mean, it can't just be Manson, the only one back there doing everything. And, I mean, Holzer's been getting in the mix too lately. We've seen that in some of the games as well. And like you said, Richie's been out there kind of doing his thing as well. So that's been good. But I think that's a huge part of next season too. If they do go for a trade, I could see them going and getting a big defenseman, which in the offseason we'll talk more about the trade deadline and go more into that. We'll have a show where we'll talk about players around the league and what the Ducks may or may not do. But I think that's definitely the direction that they need to go. They obviously score more goals, get more physical. The other big problem has been special teams play. Power play has been, freaking terrible. We already know that. They've had issues with it. A couple of these games it's come to life, but overall for the season, it's just not been there. So that's something else that they've got to work on. The penalty kill has been so-so, but, as far as the power play goes, every time I go to a game, I always crack up because everybody around me just starts chirping, when either they're not able to get the puck in the zone or they only get one or two shots on the power play. They're not quality chances and things like that. And that's something else that Murray talked about too, is he's like, the guys get in there and they just hang out and pass the puck around. You need more people moving to the net, more people going, east and west. Once you get it in there and get the defense moving, create those openings, create those spots where you can sneak in on the side. Or maybe, you go in there with 5-on-4 and you can break it down to a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, while you're in that offensive zone, holding down the forecheck, things like that. Create those opportunities, because once you set up in whatever pattern that you're doing and you're just passing it back and forth, that's not always going to work. I mean, you're going to end up probably having to try and take a slap shot from the point and have someone screen in the front, which that's not a bad tactic too. You need to do that as well, but you need to try to mix it up too. And I've seen other teams do that to the Ducks, where they'll break it down from the 5-on-4 power play. It ends up, going down to that 3-on-2 or 2-on-1. They get those chances and whatnot. So that's another big issue for the Ducks that they're going to have to look at too in terms of their style of play. It's not just being physical, but they really got to work out the kinks in the power play, because for lack of a better word, it's just been awful. They haven't been able to get a lot going. Like I said, it's gotten a little bit better lately. We've seen it in some of these games where obviously it came to life. That San Jose game was a really exciting game lately. Of the ones that we're talking about them, the Ducks were able to come through on that one and win in overtime, which was nice. We hadn't seen that in a while. And then, of course, they lose in a shootout to the Kings, which was unfortunate. I mean, that killed it. But we did have a good watch party that night. We filled up the room that we had. We had the bar taken over. We had, 90 to like 100 people there and a lot of good giveaways. So that part was fun for our last watch party of the season. But those are the things that, I look at, Eddie, is adding the special teams in there too. If they're able to get, I think it's going to be hard, but like we said, if Murray's able to get some kind of quarterback for the power play, Scott and Niedermeyer type, I mean, it's going to take something. Obviously, they're going to have to ship someone out, do some stuff like we talked about. They're going to have to talk to, Kesler and his situation, Perry, we talked about that as well. Eaves, all these kind of variables are going to have to figure out if they can, do some things to move some people and lower the cap down to bring in some kind of player, because it's not going to be easy. With the way the Ducks situation is, they've always been close to the cap this last year. Obviously, they made some moves. They got Montour out, so they created some space, as we talked about the trade deadline. But it's going to be tough. I think part of it, like we said, it's going to start with the coaching. They got to bring in the coach. They got to change a couple things in style of play. I think keep letting the younger guys do their thing has been great. I think they've done the right thing the rest of the season. Who cares if we win the games? Like we said, we wanted them to beat the Kings. Of course, they lose the 2 to the Kings. We have one more. Hopefully, maybe they win that last one on the last day of the season. We'll see. But that's what I look at, Eddie. I don't know if there's anything else you think that the team can do with the rookies or the power play. If there's anything else you want to touch on. But those are kind of my thoughts on what the Ducks can do. Obviously a couple of weeks to go, but things that they can, do to improve for next season.
I think you hit them all on the mark, and everything I would have talked about. You said, just to break that iPod again, physicality. I can't harp that enough, and I think that's like one of the most important aspects they can do to succeed next season. But yeah, I think you said it all. Pretty much everything I would have said. It just starts with a new coach. We got to figure out what we're going to do with the new coach, and figure out, how he works and what kind of players that he wants to structure his team. Because you don't want to bring in a coach and just start throwing in players that he's not comfortable with. Let him have some say in players. Let him and the scouts and our vice president, general manager, and coach acting right now talk about it, and they can all have a strategy together, so they can all work together as well. Murray's going to have the number one say. He's going to make the trades and do he thinks best for the team. But let's bring in a coach too and get his opinion and add his thoughts in the mix and like what players he wants to see and what chemistry because the coach is right there with the players and he knows the players more than Murray. Well, I guess Murray is going to know the players now more because he's coaching. So maybe that will be beneficial of him as coach to be able to have that relationship differently with the coach and they can work together on bringing players to better the chemistry for the Ducks and have success.
Yeah,
I want to point out to you. You pointed out Richie. I definitely want to say I was so wrong about Richie at the beginning of the season, and I'll go ahead and say that right now. He's having a great season. He missed a few games, during his contract dispute. But I mean, he's having one of his best seasons. He's already surpassed his. He has career high in points right now and assists. He has a few games left, and I think he'll hit that past 10-goal mark. So I just want to just say to all listeners and Mike that, we talked about that Richie before. I was so wrong about it, and I'm glad that we ended up signing him and not trading him. And I think that he, is only going to go up from here and then going to have those, those better seasons and continue to, be that big physical power forward that we desperately.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's got 9 goals, not crazy, but he's got over 31 points. 31 points, so over 30 points, duh. But, he's definitely turned it on a little bit better. We probably want to see some more goals next season, but definitely the physicality's there. And, he's been a good player for the Ducks this season. To kind of wind up the show, we've got a couple other questions about the draft. Like I said, we'll go into more detail about it after the season. But, we will try to get to everybody's fan questions. Another one from Alex, he talks about, if the ping pong balls fall, and we get number 1, do we take Hughes? We also have Michael ask, if the Ducks get a high draft pick, which players should the Ducks go for? Kind of answer both these questions. Murray's strategy in the first couple rounds is to go for the best player available regardless of position. So that's what he talked about in rounds 1 and 2. And then after that, it depends on the needs of the team and where you plug, holes in the team where you think that, down the road or currently need some help. So that's kind of where he's at. So obviously, we'll talk about specific players, like I said, later after the season. But as far as number 1, I think they still would go for Hughes. I don't know if they're going to end up there. They're still above the Kings, even though we've been losing to them. But if they do end up in that spot, I think they would take Hughes. I think that would be the spot. So that's kind of just to answer that question. I don't know if you have a different take, Eddie, on that.
I'm not too big on Hughes. Like I researched a little bit. I saw a few videos. I saw him play in that tournament. I didn't see anything that really popped out to me like that. Like, whoa. And I know a lot of fans get into this whole, let's tank and tank for this player and tank for that player. So do some research and don't just jump on that bandwagon because he's ranked number 1 doesn't really necessarily mean that he's going to go number 1. He's going to be the real deal. I mean, there's been plenty of us in the draft, and we don't want to look like the jackasses that made him move in. It's like, I'll use an example of that one year. I did my last year when I was still in the Army, I think it was. When the Avalanche got the number 1 first pick, and everyone was so hyped about Seth Jones this, Seth Jones that, and everyone thought he was going to go number 1 in Colorado. Well, he ended up dropping to number 4, and Colorado took Nathan McKinnon. And there was a lot of fans, from the Avalanche that were upset about that. Like, we need a top defenseman, we need this, and I can't believe Sackett picked him, and, we need to fire Sackett. But you know what? Look at Nathan McKinnon now. I guarantee that all 30 teams in the NHL would love to have him on their team, especially the cap hit he's at right now, like $6.5 million, and he's a superstar. So, I mean, the whole draft can go a 1,000 different ways. You can end up getting a 7th round pick that turns out to be a number 1 player, superstar. So it just all depends. The draft is just, one of those things that's really unpredictable. You can't really predict a player's future. And you can see them and see how they skate, but I mean, once you put them in the Lions den, you're going to really see how they perform. I'm just not big on Hughes. I don't see anything really that spectacular about him. I don't really see him. I don't want to necessarily say he's a bust. I just don't really see him being that significant factor to improve a franchise that much. I see him more just a second line, maybe a third line forward. I don't think he's gonna, be that superstar, that player that everyone's all hyped up, jumping on the bandwagon to be. Yeah, like Mike said, all these questions about the draft, once we figure out, what place to draft, all the Ducks are, the draft order they're going to be in, who gets one, two, three, four, from there, Mike and I will go ahead and research all, the top, 15 draft picks, and we'll go from there and we'll research them, we'll watch some videos, and we'll provide that insight for you, and then we can make our, our predictions and who we want. So I'm pretty sure, Mike and I will disagree on what players to pick, or who knows, we might agree for once on what players we want to pick. So, you never know, but just keep an open mind for the draft. It's really unpredictable. Don't get caught up in the whole tank for this player, tank for that player, because, a lot of people that just say that and tweet that, they really don't know what they're talking about. They don't sit there and watch videos. They just hear one analyst say, "Oh, he's going to be the best," blah, blah. Okay, let's take this guy. Come on. You guys want to sell out Rick DiPietro for me? He was supposed to be the superstar number one goalie in the world. You can ask Islanders. They're still paying for him. He's out. He's not even playing for them anymore. He was one of the biggest busts in NHL history. So just, don't get too caught up in that, and do a little bit of research and find out for yourself who you want. I guarantee there's other players out there that, those hidden gems that can just be spectacular. And I really trust our Dutch scouts. They've been doing a good job finding, players that aren't going to go to, top of the pick and stuff like that. Unfortunately, this season is not the way we wanted it, but, I'm excited to get a little higher draft pick for them. So, we can just look forward to that.
Yeah, you're right. The Ducks are going to have the opportunity to get some of those picks, and you and I can definitely debate Hughes in more detail, in the offseason when we get closer to the draft and we figure out the order the Ducks are going to be in, how many picks they're going to have. Like I said, there's the potential for them to trade some of them, obviously, with the way things are going. As we talked about earlier in the show, depending on what players do get bought out or retire, or if someone gets traded or whatnot, that's going to affect some of the things as well. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be, we'll have to watch these last couple games here, see how the Ducks do, watch the young guys play. Obviously, just playing for next season, there's not much else, going on, obviously, in these final 2 weeks of the season with the Ducks. So we'll have a show at the end. We'll, when they play that last game against the Kings, we'll have one shortly after that. We'll talk about, like we said, the good, the bad, and mostly the ugly of the Ducks season, unfortunately, but we'll go over all that for you. Yeah. And just want to tell everybody, I appreciate all the support from all of you out there. We had a ton of people at the watch party, and, I appreciate the fans in general too. A lot of these games that I've gone to where, we know that the Ducks are out of it, and the Ducks have still had sellout crowds, and they've still had a lot of people there. So, there's some people out there that talk trash on our fan base. And I'm happy to see that, at the games I've gone to the last couple of weeks at home, that the fans are still there. The team's been playing poorly and whatnot, but they're still showing up. They're there. So, my hat's off to you guys. When anybody says, "Oh, the Ducks fans are this, that, and whatever," well, I haven't seen that this season. The Ducks obviously aren't going to make it, and you're still going to the game. So, that's huge. I think that's a big win for everybody. So, like I said, thank you also for the support for us. We'll be back in a couple weeks when the season's over and talk about that. And like we said, we'll talk about the draft and all the other things coming in the summer. So thank you. Also, we apologize if the audio is a little bit off on this show. Eddie's computer took a dump. So we had to record with his cell phone, but we should be back to normal too. Yeah, we should be back to normal at the end of the season though. But we wanted to at least get one more show in before, so we can kind of talk about the injury news and some things to look for coming up. So like I said, with that, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Let's go Ducks.